Hello and welcome to the Backlot 605 podcast. I am one of your hosts. I am Casey Kelderman. Joined with me, as always, is my co-host on this podcast that you are listening to right now, Brian Mensing.
Right now?
Right meow.
Right meow?
Right meow.
Right meow.
How you doing, Brian?
I'm doing good. I'm trying to stay warm in this Arctic tundra that we live in right now.
That is all we can do right now. We are living inside John Carpenter's The Thing. That is our lives right now in South Dakota. That is how we are living. I am eventually going to have a Kurt Russell beard with snow just glued on it.
I have just enough groceries until Wednesday when it's going to be semi-nice outside that I can actually survive to go outside to go get more.
Semi-nice in South Dakota right now is just above freezing. Or it's above zero. Zero.
Above zero. No. I think Wednesday is supposed to be 1.
Yeah.
When this drops, it's supposed to be 1.
We're lucky. We are lucky to have it 1 degree. And we're also lucky because we are continuing Spike Lee month here, week number 3. We are going to be talking about BlacKkKlansman here in the second half of the show. And to do so, we're joined by returning guest to the show, first time on the main show, though. He originally we had Bobby on the show for the Hazard Film Project, which is maybe my favorite interview we've ever done. I think it's maybe my favorite discussion we've ever had on the podcast when Bobby Peacock and Daniel Bergson joined us for that hour-long conversation, which was one of my favorite things we've ever done. And Bobby, welcome back to the show. Welcome back to the main show.
Yay. I got to say something about the weather real quick here. Listen, South Dakota is like a catfish. It may look good outside, but it is cold. Like catfishing people. I walked outside. I'm like, it's nice. Nope. It's -18 outside.
Right.
Thanks for having me, though. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely. We are excited to have you back because I remember when we did that interview, you said right after, whenever you guys want to talk about movies, let's do it. Let's do it.
Yeah.
That's what we're going to do. But before we do that, though, I do want to touch on Hazard because since that, we do have a couple updates since then. You guys have reached your goal for the film.
Yep. Yeah.
Do you have any other updates on how far the project is going?
Yeah. So we've reached our goal for the film, and we're actually so Hazard Film Project is a nonprofit, and then we've reached our goal for the film, but we've also started a new project called the Black Project that has been releasing in the month of Black History Month, so February, and it has been so amazing. We got a couple of news features on it, front page of the newspaper, and so it's just been awesome to see this project, the Black Project, kind of just take off. It's so crazy. So huge shout out to I gotta do a shout out. Huge shout out to the Hazard Film Project. Huge shout out to Daniel Bergson and the photographer on the project, Eric Cottle. Without them, this project would not even exist. So it was truly a team effort. So yeah.
Awesome. Congrats on everything you guys have going on. This is awesome success. And it's nice to see people that we know and respect and just know that are great people getting continued success. And I saw you shared that news article of you guys on the cover of the Argus Leader. I'm like, that's incredible. That's awesome. The Argus Leader is the biggest newspaper here in Sioux Falls. And that's incredible to have that on there.
Yeah, I had no clue. I woke up in the morning and I got a message, "Hey, you're in the newspaper." I'm like, "Okay, cool." I was gonna go and buy some newspaper, and I'm like, "Wait, I'm on the front page. The project's on the front page." So
you're over there thinking what third, fourth, fifth page am I going to be on?
Exactly. Yeah.
Where's the lifestyle section?
Yeah.
That is awesome, though. Congrats on everything you got going on. This is awesome to hear, and we're glad to have you on because, like we said, we wanted to talk movies with you. So let's do it because this is a stacked news week. This is also a stacked box office because these are some surprising numbers as we're jumping into them. So the box office for this week, this is over, as we brought it up, a 5-day period. This is over the President's Day, Valentine's Day entire weekend. Here. But number one, returning to the number one spot in the box office, this movie released before Thanksgiving 2020. Nicolas Cage in The Croods: A New Age, $2.66 million. Huge uptick. I believe what last week was 1 million. I mean, this is also counting 5 days versus 3 days, but still 2.66 in the #1 spot. That is awesome for this movie. I think this movie is a real trendsetter for people returning to theaters and what we can expect to be money-making films in the box office. These family films are going to stick around for a while.
Nick Cage is just excited the fact he's got a #1 movie at the box office again.
Yes. It should have been Willy's Wonderland from what I hear, but
he's got 2 holidays underneath for one film between Thanksgiving and President's Day weekend. I mean,
he was also there for Christmas, so the Cage man is our holiday man right now.
There you go.
Yeah, we're gonna talk.
That'll be the next Cage movie, Holiday Man. It'll be the follow-up to the Family Man.
I'll watch it. We'll talk about a movie Nick Cage might appear in the news section.
Oh yes.
#2, Judas and the Black Messiah, which is a dual HBO Max and theatrical release, $2.4 million. I haven't had the chance to check this out. I'm hoping to watch it here this upcoming week. You guys had the chance to watch it yet? I've heard nothing but great things on it, though.
Yeah, same here. I haven't had a chance to check it out, but it's one of those things that I want to watch. So yeah.
My short answer is yes, and do it as soon as you can.
Mm-hmm.
When I've been trying to be short and sweet about some of my thoughts on Letterboxd and whatnot. In terms of the performance that Daniel Kaluuya gives in this is the kind of performance that I wish I would have got out of him for Black Panther.
You just giving him shade on Black Panther every week. We talk about Daniel Kaluuya.
I love that movie, and he's the one thing that I really don't like about it. And I like him as an actor. He's fantastic.
He's better than the bad CGI.
I CGI aside, I'm just talking about the people in front of the camera. But I mean,
I think he's fine.
Him and Lakeith Stanfield absolutely are fantastic in this film. It is absolutely great. I do think being that it's coming out in February and whatnot, if this been not a whole COVID, movie season and whatnot, I think this could and should have done very well. I do think it's definitely it's a great movie, especially for the sake of history. There's a lot of about one of the big reasons I wanted to watch it is there's a lot about this stuff here from the civil rights and everything like that I don't know about. Yeah. I sucked at history, so to be able to have stuff like this is a great watch.
Yeah, absolutely.
#3 is another movie that is an HBO Max theatrical release as well. The Little Things, Denzel Washington, Jared Leto, $2.4 million. I do expect that's probably because, again, holiday weekend, but this movie's getting a lot of award buzz, which I think is going to continue this uptick for this movie, especially around the Joker himself, Jared Leto.
Well, hey, I bet Zack Snyder's hoping to pull on some of that award thing so he can pull that name for Zack Snyder for the Snyder Cut next month.
Could you imagine that? And co-starring Academy Award nominee Jared Leto as the Joker. Yeah,
maybe.
I've heard very mixed things on this. Again, a lot of the buzz is for Jared Leto. I haven't had the chance to watch it yet, but #4, The Marksman, Liam Neeson, $1.33 million for this 5-day weekend. Mr. Neeson still kicking ass in the box office. As Brian is spilling this drink.
No, I must have a leaky bottle. I just have a leaky bottle, I guess. So all of a sudden I looked over and I just have a bunch of water just all over the place. Thank God I have a brand new mat for my keyboard. So yes, taking 58 or whatever this is.
Yeah, that's it.
I love that.
#5, rounding out the box office for this week, Wonder Woman 1984, $1.3 million. Again, this is a big drop for this movie, going from #1 over the Christmas holidays, and now we're at #5, even though The Croods still sticking around. I think this is a lot of buzz on the movies are keeping movies at the top of the box office for this upcoming or for this past weekend over the holidays and stuff. So
I will point out, because this is the movie I was curious about. This movie has had an uptick in the last 2 weeks. because at one point it dipped to 905,000 2 weeks ago. So, the holiday at least helped it, at least.
Yeah. Again, so I'll run through the box office really quickly here. Number 1, The Croods. Number 2, Judas and the Black Messiah. Number 3, The Little Things. Number 4, The Marksman. Number 5, Wonder Woman 1984.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's go to the news. We've got some exciting news to talk about this week, Brian. What do we want to start with?
Maybe you think it's exciting,
I think it's all exciting.
It's all exciting. First thing we have here is the director of Underwater to direct a new Paranormal Activity, and they call it a reboot. There's been so many Paranormal Activities and going different ways. It's just been another one. I don't know. I think I've seen 1.5 of these movies. They've just never been something for me. For me, horror tends to be more gore and violence than it is the supernatural kind of thing. So for me, this is kind of a but Casey, you're more the paranormal guy, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm mixed on this series. I do think the first 3 are really good. Some of the other ones, like the marked ones, and
isn't there like a Dark Dimensions or something like that?
I think that was the last one. They were fine. They were whatever. I'm excited about this though. Christopher Landon is returning to write these. Who wrote, I believe, the 3rd through 5th ones or something like that. He did the Happy Death Day movies and Freaky, so he's returning to write for this. And I mean, Underwater was one of my favorite horror movies and one of my favorite movies of last year. The one movie I wish I saw in theaters that came out in 2020. I wish I had just went out and just knew nothing and just went into Underwater that way into the theater. But nonetheless, it's a great movie, and I'm excited about this. I think it's heading in the right direction. We need a horror series that comes out every year, which Paranormal Activity was doing. We haven't had that in a while, so if this can kind of return to that form, I'm all for it.
I can't do horror movies. Nope.
Are you the guy that just sits back and just like this the whole time, just covering your face?
I am the loud person of run. You don't go into that room. No, don't do it, bro. No, you know better. You know what I mean? That's me. But
we need to bring him to a horror movie, Casey. I'm just saying.
No, you don't, man.
To Paranormal Activity, obviously.
Oh no, man, I can't do that.
Because the last one, what movie was it that we went to, Casey? That the other Bobby we know.
It was Jordan Peele's Us.
Oh yeah, we went to go see Us, and I tell you what, I'm laughing throughout the movie, and it's not because of the movie is funny. It's because Bobby is sitting next to us here, and I'm getting so much entertainment out of him. I'm like, we're taking to as many horror movies as we can.
Yeah, man. I'll tell you what. I will watch one horror movie under one condition. Y'all have to pay for the ticket and the popcorn. Because I don't know if I'll make it through the whole thing, bro.
About halfway through, you're like,
I don't know if the popcorn will make it through. Your hands will be flying up in the
air. Yeah. Just buy me 2 of them, just in case. One for a backup,
Put this one over here in the empty seat.
So maybe this next piece of news will excite you a little more, from what I understand.
Yes.
Coming from a horror director on this one, though.
Huh.
Well, it's the last thing he did horror-ish, though.
He's a horror director.
Yeah. Adam Wingard to direct a Face-Off sequel. This is the guy who just recently wrapped on Kong versus Godzilla versus whatever it's named is. It's those 2 monsters fighting. I would be curious to see when this actually comes to fruition, just because people have been talking about a sequel, a reboot, whatever to 97's Face-Off for 23 years, 33, whatever the hell it has been, 23 years. So, I mean, if it actually comes to fruition, then that's what I'll be excited for it. But I'm intrigued, and all I ask is that we somehow get Travolta Cage cameos.
Oh, I don't think we'll ask for anything. There's no cameos from them. They are in this movie. There's not a chance they do a sequel without Cage and Travolta in this movie.
Now, when when we do it, can we at least get some like nods to John Woo, like a random like white dove comes flying out of nowhere for no reason whatsoever?
There should be just a dove. That should be the poster. Just Face Off 2, just two doves flying away. What I love about this story is the story behind this story is that when this news dropped, everybody was like, "Oh, Adam Wingard, the Godzilla versus King Kong director, is going to be doing a Face Off reboot." Was the story going around? But no, he goes to his Instagram, posts a picture of Nicolas Cage from Face Off, and says, "Oh, you guys read all those news stories? Don't worry, I'm not making a reboot. We're making a sequel to Face Off." I'm like,
Oh
yes,
man,
yes.
let's go.
My other pitch was if they were going to do a reboot to have it star, his co-stars in his latest movie, Godzilla and Kong, and have them star in a Face Off, reboots. But I'll take Cage and Travolta too.
Right.
Yeah. I think I'm actually excited. If this comes to fruition, that would be so dope. I mean, obviously they're getting older, but like this was like, back in the day, this was for me, like it was a classic movie, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
Like I said before the show, it's the greatest movie ever made, and people don't give it enough credit for being the greatest movie that has ever been put to screen, with two of the greatest performances of all time. I mean, John Travolta and Nicolas Cage in this both should have just won Best Actor that year, both together as each other.
You have some solid points. I don't know if it was the greatest movie ever made. I wouldn't go that far, but okay.
97 did have a couple of like, high level movies back then.
Oh yeah. Oh heck yeah.
Yeah, but are they Face Off level?
No. I mean,
Con Air might have been.
But and that's the one thing
That's Con Air. Yeah.
Was that 97? Was that 96?
I'll look it up. Anyway, go. What was your point?
I was gonna say is the one thing about making a sequel to this here is, I mean, I lean with Bobby in the fact that this is probably not the quote unquote greatest film ever made of 97 that you claim it is, Casey, but this is still a very high bar.
Yeah.
For this film because of how over the top, like, this is the height of the 90s John Woo American action films, and these are two performances that are literally dialed to 11. Like this is the Cage going full Cage. This is the downward spiral starting of Travolta going whatever Travolta is now. I don't know. This is a very high bar that he's going to have to try to stick the landing to. 97 was Con Air, so I mean, greatest year of movies ever there with Con Air and Face Off, same year. So I think Wingard. I like to see him stretch his action chops again. I mean, The Guest is I think one of the best action horror movies in the last decade. So if he can pull off some of the Guest stuff inside Face Off, I'm like, yes, give me that. Mm-hmm.
That's good.
All right, on to the next thing here. Because I look at this and I was like, are they just trying to do this so they can keep the rights? Warner Brothers to be developing a new Wizard of Oz movie because if you can't pull it off with James Franco and Sam Raimi, what else you have left?
Give me
Mr. Wizard of Oz fan over here. Give me your thoughts.
Give me all this. Give me all the Wizard of Oz movies you want to make. I don't care because. I've a lot of people give crap to reboots and stuff. I'm not because it's like a lot of the arguments are it tarnishes the original or it ruins it. I'm like, no, you still have the original movie, and I forgot about the James Franco movie, so has everybody else. So I don't think there's any reason we can't just go back to the Judy Garland one if this one isn't good either, But I think the case in point of why we should continue is a movie we talked about on the show, Return to Oz, which was set within the world of Wizard of Oz, entirely new cast, entirely new take on the Wizard of Oz.
Loosely based, not like it didn't have like a full-on take from the books either.
Oh, it did have a full-on take from the books, not the Wizard of Oz that the Judy Garland is based off of, but the hundreds of other Oz world books. I don't know what's that universe called. I don't know, the Ozverse. That's probably just the Dr. Oz. Doctor universe. But yeah, I think if Warner Brothers is going to do this, I mean, why not? Let's give it another shot. Let's tell a different story. We don't necessarily have to have Dorothy coming from Kansas meets a scarecrow, meets the Tin Man, meets the Cowardly Lion. Let's just tell a fantasy story set in the world of Oz.
Mm-hmm. I would be good with that if it was something that was a continuation of, not necessarily having to rehash what's already been done. That's one thing I liked about Return of Oz. I just kind of wish that the James Franco one, being it with Sam Raimi, would more Return of Oz than Wizard of Oz, because Sam Raimi lends himself to that darker. So who knows? Maybe we'll get a darker version. We don't even know what's even going on in the fact that they said, "Hey, we're doing a movie."
Well, they have a director attached to it. Which was yeah, and I'll look it up, Bobby.
Yeah, no, I was gonna say, do you think that they'll do like real action or like animated?
That's a good question. I would imagine they're going to keep on the train of making this as live action as possible. Like Alice in Wonderland type of fantasy kind of stuff and whatnot.
Yeah, absolutely.
The only way I could see Warner Brothers doing a full on animated feature a la like Hotel Transylvania or something like that is if they were doing like a straight to VOD type of low level something that they didn't really care about.
Yeah, for sure.
Which they have done with Tom and Jerry inside the Judy Garland Wizard of Oz. Which is a thing. That is a thing. Watchmen director Nicole Cassell, who did the Watchmen miniseries that came out a year or two ago, she's going to be directing this.
Okay. And I've heard a lot of good things about the Watchmen.
Mm-hmm. So
the series, not the movie.
That's true. Yeah, again, I have too. I haven't had the chance to watch Watchmen yet, and yeah, I've been hearing good things, and I think from as far as like people giving buzz on this movie, I think at least the choice of her directing this project is getting at least some good buzz, at least for getting a new Wizard of Oz movie. But again, this is like we talked about with the Willy Wonka reboot they're talking about. It's the same thing. Yeah, again.
Yeah, the names so far that have been thrown out for that was Timothy Chalamet and Tom Holland as Wonka.
Your Willy Wonka is right behind you, Brian, and he's not the guy from Star Wars.
I was like, John David Washington?
John David Washington would crush his Willy Wonka.
Wait a minute, we had this conversation before because the other one was Lakeith Stanfield.
Yeah. See, we're casting this movie right here. Hollywood, listen up.
Right.
Yeah. And then we can have Denzel. Denzel can play Willy Wonka's dad in a flashback or something.
Well, I was thinking, like, you know what? Instead of making this PG, let's make this rated R, and then have Samuel L. Jackson play Willy Wonka.
Can I have Sam Jackson playing a Willy Wonka version of like what he was in The Kingsman?
Yeah.
Lisp and all.
Lisp and all.
Yes.
Like I want the hat and everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want Willy Wonka to be like I want Sam Jackson's Willy Wonka to be like the prequel to what he was in The Kingsman.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, let's just go ahead and make this rated R.
Let's just go full horror movie. I mean, Willy Wonka's probably killing those kids anyway. Might as well have Sam Jackson doing it.
you gotta feed the Oompa Loompa somehow.
Good point.
What is happening?
We're getting dark, very, very dark.
We are too dark.
We are getting Gene Wilder in the tunnel dark is what we're getting.
That's gonna be. It's like that scene, but the whole movie. I like it. Is that it? That's what we got for the news?
That's all we got.
All right. So no coming soon this week. We're actually just kind of transitioning that to its online only thing. So if you do want to check out what is coming soon this week, go check it out on backlot605.com. Again, incredible lineup of stuff coming out each and every week. So go check it out over on our website, backlot605.com. But let's not waste any more time then. Let's jump into this week's movie of discussion, which is 2018's Academy Award winning BlacKkKlansman.
Mm-hmm.
So good.
Those guys.
These guys.
This morning
I was kind of doing doing some research on this, and again, I went back and rewatched, Spike Lee winning his Oscar for the first time, and just the sheer just happiness and enjoyment on Samuel L. Jackson's face as we have talked about how he should play Willy Wonka. Directed by Spike Lee. That's the movie we need. The R-rated Willy Wonka movie directed by Spike Lee with Samuel L. Jackson.
Yes.
He can even wear
that camera pan where they're looking at the camera as they're going this way. That's straight up Willy Wonka right there.
Yeah.
That's them going down the chocolate river.
Yes.
But just the sheer enjoyment on Samuel L. Jackson's face when he announces Spike Lee is winning his first Oscar here, and Spike literally jumps into Samuel L. Jackson's arms as he wins. That is just one of the great moments in Academy history, and I think it's for a well-deserved movie.
Yeah,
100%.
Yeah. So this is go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, and I'm just hoping it's not going to be the last one that he ever gets and whatnot. You know. He probably should have gotten a lot more than just because he got adapted screenplay for this one. Yeah. There's so much more he could and should have gotten for this.
I think we might be looking at it this year, and we'll talk about that next week when we talk about The Five Bloods. I think Spike might be entering into Oscar categories with that one at least. But BlacKkKlansman 2018. From what I understand, this was a first-time watch for all three of us, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
That's awesome. I think
all I know is when I was reaching out to Bobby here about, hey, here's what we're doing. What ones you want to talk? You literally jumped on this one like nothing. So the first thing I thought was, okay, well, he's obviously seen it. He wants to talk about it. Then you follow up. You're like, yeah, I've never seen this before. I'm like, okay, this is going to be a fun conversation.
Yeah, I'm a huge Spike Lee fan. I just haven't seen like a lot of his movies. But like he's kind of paved the way for like black filmmakers, and so
maybe we'll kind of start right there, because I feel BlacKkKlansman is kind of, for me, it's like a culmination of his entire career. Like when I put my little review out about it, I said this is Spike Lee just flexing his entire filmmaking power for 2 hours. Like this feels like everything Spike has done before, and everything that you've seen in his movies, his tropes, the way he stylizes his films is all present in this. So I feel like this is kind of a culmination of his career, and I think it's also a nice turn in his career too. I think we're heading back into this type of direction for Spike Lee. Is more of these grounded stories, more of these, again, based like in real life, like Malcolm X and Do the Right Thing. Definitely had political messages to them. This has a political message to it. The Five Bloods had a political message to it, which I think was where Spike is in his wheelhouse. That's what he does best.
That is what he's definitely strong at.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's important because like I think there needs to be room for movies like this that has a message of like, hey, yo, these are some real issues that are going on,
Well, and like I mentioned to you guys just before we started recording here, there's a lot about different aspects of history that I'm just completely oblivious to. And, I'll be the first to admit, I'm not going to be the guy that's going to be opening the book and trying to learn about it, whatever. But if I can get something that's at least an art form that is true to the source, and not taking a whole lot of liberties, give me something. I might not necessarily agree with it, but I'd rather you give me an honest history.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is something that, I think Spike does very well in that he has his style. He has his message he's giving across. But he doesn't try to embellish it either, though.
Yeah, absolutely.
So let's jump into that, because you kind of talked about like his history. Again, Malcolm X was based on a book. This is also based on a book written by the main character of this movie, Ron Stallworth. Came out 2014, I think, is when the novel came out. Spike picked it up right away and basically entered production right after that. Again, this comes out in 2018, set in the 70s. It is about this town in Colorado Springs. They hire their first African-American police officer, played by John David Washington, who is, as we said, before, the son of Denzel Washington. He also appeared, as we said, in Malcolm X, which we were surprised he was in that movie.
It's a great segue, just a great segue from last week to this week.
Yeah, we go from father to son, and perfect balance between the two. And I think also
and that hair, that
hair, that is some good hair.
So good. That fro, clean.
So
the only thing I want to say about that though is the fact that I pictured like he didn't have that in real life, and I just pictured them just like popping off the helmet so he can go home for the day.
Yeah.
Because it was just like way perfect.
Too perfect, man. It was crazy.
So, as you know, Ron Stallworth is the first police officer, African American police officer in this Colorado Springs town. He basically wants to start a underground investigation and infiltrate the local Ku Klux Klan after he just makes a cold call to them one day, pretending to be a guy interested in joining the Ku Klux Klan. This is
using his real name.
What's that?
Yeah,
well,
he used his real name too. Yeah.
So basically, he then convinces another detective on the force, played by Adam Driver, to also be the in-person Ron Stallworth, while he is the voice of Ron Stallworth on the phone, and infiltrate the Ku Klux Klan. Basically, throughout the movie, the two continue to do that, learn intel, until one day they basically, John David Washington's character, Ron Stallworth, develops this relationship with the head of the Ku Klux Klan, David Duke, played by Venom himself, Topher Grace, who is incredible in this movie. I love him in this movie. We'll have to talk about him.
He's fantastic, but his face showed up, and I was like, the guy from the 70s show is in a Spike Lee movie playing the head of the Klan.
Eric Foreman?
Like, you can't make that up.
No.
Okay, let me rephrase. It sounds like I made it up, I should say.
Yeah.
Red is going to put a foot in Eric Foreman's ass for joining the Ku Klux Klan. He's incredible in this movie. So yeah, it's basically about this police force try to infiltrate the local Ku Klux Klan, and I mean that's kind of where we got to start with this is give context of when this movie came out and what this movie is really about. Because again, this movie came out in 2018. Mm-hmm. We're 2 years into the Trump administration. This is very much a movie pointing a finger at that point. So that's why I think it's so interesting. We're looking at this movie now in 2021, because now we can say we're post-Trump administration. We can look back at it. We're not in it this time. I think we're in a very different situation now looking at it this way. And we can kind of reflect on it in a way, which I think makes this movie even, easier to digest, even though it's not that hard to digest, because it is a comedy too, which we do.
Yeah.
How funny this movie actually really is.
Yeah, I was surprised how funny it was. I guess John David Washington, like he was so articulate during this movie, like the character that there's that part where, he's looking through the newspaper, sees the Klan, and he just goes and he makes that phone call, and the room just goes completely silent. I mean, how awkward would it be? Even in the room, okay, so you're
all the language that was coming out of his mouth.
Yeah, I was sitting back. I was like, okay, should I laugh? Should I laugh? I mean, because this is funny, everybody, the way that they shot it, where they're just turning their chairs slowly and stuff.
Oh, Adam Driver is perfect in that, because you can see the light bulb goes off of what's happening, but he's not just want a quick turn around to see what's going on. He's like, I'm just gonna slowly turn.
Am I hearing what I'm hearing? Type of thing.
Yeah.
Or one of the other detectives where it's the bigger guy with the gray hair. He's just slowly turning his head towards him. What is going on here?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah, I think Adam Driver and John David Washington have incredible chemistry in this movie, and I think them two together are really funny too in all their exchanges. I mean, I think my favorites laugh out loud moments of this movie is when they're kind of debriefing each other on what's the backstory of this Ron Stallworth, of the one that's going to infiltrate the KKK, and it's they're going back and forth and they're trying to mimic each other's voices. I think when John David Washington points to the other guy, he's like, "You're doing a better job of being me than him."
Yeah.
Because when I look at these two guys here, I immediately think, oh yeah, they sound the same.
Well, and Adam Driver has a very distinct voice himself too.
Oh, definitely.
Very, very monotone, very stoic type of voice too.
Yep.
And that's one thing. That's one thing I did appreciate. Because when I think about like what Spike could have done with this here, I mean, number one, we're talking about something that takes place and what at the time it does. So it's not like we have high definition calling, and so you have a little bit of a wiggle room of what the other guy on the other end of the phone is already hearing in the first place.
Yeah.
But like, immediately the first thing I thought he could have possibly done is that anytime because I think of like, I'm sorry to bother you. Like whenever Lakeith Stanfield is on the phone in that film, it's David Cross's voice.
Yeah.
Where he could have played it off, and that anytime Washington was talking, it was actually Driver's voice. But the fact that they didn't play that out, I think is a good way that they did a good job of trying to basically work with each other, like you said, that chemistry that they had with each other to kind of to develop a singular voice between the two of them.
And I think if they would have done that in this movie, and this is one thing I've been mulling over in my head after I watched this, and I want to get your guys' perspective on this, is that you could have had, Adam Driver take over all the phone calls going forward, and, John David Washington's kind of just working on the side then at that point. Yeah. But it's the fact that John David Washington uses his normal voice, doesn't change it on the phone, doesn't change it when he eventually meets David Duke in person.
He talks jive, remember?
No, he doesn't. He talks in his normal voice.
He was supposed to talk jive, but he ended up not.
Yes. So that was the question I want to ask you to. And I think this is on purpose for, I don't know, it could be in the book that this is just how it played out. But for me, it feels like this is definitely a Spike thing to throw in there, is that he never does talk jive to anyone. Because that's not how he talks. He talks like Ron Stallworth. That's how he talks.
Well, and I think part of that too was, I mean, even like, because I felt like it was like something like he was kind of out of place in multiple areas, like his character was, where, he's a police officer and he's the first only black police officer in
Colorado.
In Colorado, right? So then he talks to, they bring him to that Black Power event or whatever, and he's still talking the same, and he's more articulated, but he throws out a sister here and there and stuff. But I think it goes back to like he was an educated black man, what I mean? Where his parents were in the military or his dad was in the military, raised him right, and he was articulate. And that's like my thing is like, yeah, I thought it was interesting when he was supposed to speak jive. I was waiting for it, and I'm like, wait, he didn't even speak jive. He's using the same voice,
Mm-hmm.
So,
and for me, that feels like I almost want to say like a power move on the behalf of Ron Stallworth, because again, he could have listened to his superior officer and gone with what they wanted him to do, which is what he said is like, I can do the white voice on the phone and I can do jive if I need to during a situation, but he chooses to just use his voice. He just talks like how he would talk at that point. I do think that is a power move, and also him just kind of taking his stance on the situation of, if you're going to put me in the same room of the guy who runs the Ku Klux Klan, I'm just going to be me and talk to him how I would talk to him.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of being in the same room, and I'm jumping the gun, but the scene where he has to take the picture, that was hilarious. That was so good.
What did you just do?
Right.
Just the way he grabs him and just pulls him in really tight is awesome.
Yeah.
The one thing about that, if we are going to skip ahead, is the fact that, considering what we're talking about, what we're about and who this guy was, everything like that, the fact that he let them be there, whether you're talking about Stallworth as the bodyguard or any of the staff that was there and whatnot. Like,
Yeah.
what was that? Did he allow that to happen because for him it was a power trip, or was it because you would have thought that he would have been like, no, I don't want any of these guys around me, that sort of thing, let alone having somebody be quote unquote my protector. Like, I'm surprised he didn't immediately go to like the police guy or police chief and be like, I need somebody else to be reassigned to me.
Yeah.
And maybe that's a good point to bring up, because again, I feel like it's at that point he is maybe, I think he does believe in Ron Stallworth, and what he's saying to him is that I don't believe in anything. I think it's because Ron was so upfront with him to begin with, is that I don't agree with anything you guys do. I don't agree with what you're saying, but my job is to protect you, and I will protect you. And it always, I never felt like he would have done anything against that. If he was undercover or if he was the police officer, it just feels like in his character, like that's my job. And he says that in the movie. He wants to be a good cop. That's what he wanted to do growing up too. And that feels like that's part of the job, is you're going to have to do stuff you don't want to do. You're going to have to protect people you don't want to protect. And I think that's another message of this movie. And it's, again, like I said earlier, this is a growth of Spike Lee in his filmography. It also feels like a growth in his ideologies in a way too, because this feels very different than Do the Right Thing Spike Lee. This is a very different outlook on life and authority in this movie.
For me, there's a lot of Spike that's still unknown, because until we started this month, I literally had like very little underneath my belt for Spike Lee movies. But just going from taking the Five Bloods out of this here, just because this is post BlacKkKlansman, but going from like Do the Right Thing to this here, like for me, for what little bit I've seen in the progression between Do the Right Thing, Malcolm X to this and whatnot, for that linear project, like you see the growth of him as a filmmaker. Even just there was like little things of like in Do the Right Thing, like it's a good solid film, but like there's little things like, where the way a scene started and whatnot, like you could tell there's something slightly out of place. Where this one, there's just everything so tight about this film, and everything about it just seemed to click and worked like it in a great, well-oiled machine.
Yeah. I love the cinematography in this movie, and like even going back to the beginning, like you go from like this 4:3 aspect ratio in the middle of the screen to all of a sudden you're jumping out to 16:9, and then it goes to, I think it's like the whole movie was shot in like 2:3 or whatever. And like some of those shots, like I don't know who the director of photography was or the DP, but man, oh man, like some of those crooked shots, I don't know if you guys caught some of that. I was just so like, so good. Like the cinematography in this movie was amazing.
Yeah, he shoots most of David Duke in the Dutch angle. Like we're looking up at him a lot, David Duke.
Yeah.
Where the camera is. And yeah, the cinematography in this movie, I think, is just incredible. And we start with some of, again, this is a Spike Lee thing of, we are not introduced to this movie in a normal way. I think normally we've been introduced to John David Washington right away, showing up at the police academy or getting trained or whatever. No, we start with Gone with the Wind right away. That's the opening of the movie.
Yep.
And we're showing all these, Confederate soldiers getting help and getting medical attention from that movie. And then we jump into Alec Baldwin.
Yeah.
The greatest actor ever, Alec Baldwin, in this black and white footage, which I think is, again, that's a total Spike Lee thing to jump from real footage of Gone with the Wind to propaganda footage of his in his universe with Alec Baldwin. And then we jump into the actual movie. I think that style of Spike Lee that's so present.
Yeah. I loved it. Yeah.
The other thing I do want to bring up here, since we're talking about the Gone with the Wind thing, I kind of want to, again, we'll probably just jump around through this movie anyway. Is how Spike uses cinema in this movie, because I feel he uses cinema a lot in telling his stories. And for here, it's using footage from Gone with the Wind And then towards the third act, we get Birth of a Nation, where the Ku Klux Klan is watching that, while also their story is being told during the one of these Black Power rallies and meetups and stuff, and the intercutting between the two. But I want to touch about that scene, the intercutting between the two in a second. But first, I want to touch on how Spike uses cinema, because this, again, he's a film student. He went to NYU. He is well versed in film, and I think that's a great tool to use, because you use what you know, and for him, he knows film, and that's how you use film, and it recontextualizes both of those films from the early century, both Birth of a Nation and Gone with the Wind. We're looking at it in a very different light in this movie here.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, yeah, and again, that's Spike using Birth of a Nation, which was used to put Black people down, is now this time he's using it to show that is showing the racism of that, and show how bad that is, and how that's used as propaganda for the Ku Klux Klan now. But then also he brings up 70s blaxploitation movies in this too, which this also has a kind of style of that too. I don't think he's afraid to use stylings of movies that he might be criticizing or making comments to, but also acknowledging that they have influenced him in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah. Hey, and they're talking, when you bring up the blaxploitation films and whatnot, and he's having that conversation. The media, I'm just waiting for him to go full on Black Dynamite, because especially when he tries to do that really bad like roundhouse kick and whatnot. Like, I was just waiting for something like that to happen.
Yeah.
I love when he's asked to get like evidence and files and stuff, and the guy walks out of the room and he just starts like karate chopping the air.
Yeah.
He watches like Shaft and stuff. He watches.
Yeah.
It shows you the character of Ron Stallworth is a fan of those type of movies.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. He looks like the guy that would be watching those in the old Bruce Lee films and all that stuff, just because those are heroes to him.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I do want to touch on that scene, because that I was talking about, between the two groups that are having their meetings, because again, this is what Spike Lee does best, I think, is intercutting these two meetings that are going on, because it easily could have been that we're at one and then we'll cut to the other one later on in the movie. It's just intersplicing two story. Like, he starts with the story at the Black Power meeting at the student union, and then we cut it with the Ku Klux Klan watching Birth of a Nation. I mean, just looking at that's such a incredible metaphor and way to look at how both of these groups operate. I don't know what you guys think.
Yeah, and I think part of it too is like one was still, and the other one was ramping up to chaos. You know what I mean? Like, so when the student union was meeting, it was quiet. It was peaceful. Everybody was attentive to it. And then when the KKK Klan's meeting, it was kind of like chaotic chaos, and like people shouting and yelling, and the way that he spliced those two, of the correlation between, honestly, hate, and then people telling a real story about hate. Like, it was like, man, like, it went from like pure evil to peaceful, calm experience in evil kind of thing. And so I thought the way that he spliced those two together was like so good.
The other reason why I think that they work well, other than the fact that you're right. I mean, you definitely have your yin, your yang, your black and your white kind of thing. No pun intended. But is literally that putting those together at the same time, as opposed to like maybe two different parts of the film, is the reason why I think the dynamic works that much better, is because, and we're basically shown at the exact same moment two groups of people who basically are, they have their own way of how they see the world to be true, but how those ideas are completely different at the same time.
Yeah.
That they both see themselves as the group that is correct, that they're the ones that are right.
Yeah.
But if you would have had them in two separate times and whatnot, I don't think you would have gotten that same impact than like what you were talking about. You wouldn't necessarily have seen how zen and calm the one group is in comparison to how over the top and loud and obnoxious the other group is without having them put together that way.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and I think the real story it's Harry Belafonte who is telling the story, who's great in that one scene that he's in. You know, he's telling a real story here, and you know, again, Spike showing real images and real footage of what actually happened in the turn of the century there. But I think what is really telling about that scene with the two groups is that, you know, Spike is showing ideologies in that scene. Whereas what what both groups are fighting for, and to look at what the Klan is fighting for is terrifying. And I think that entire scene, I think that's why the intercutting is extremely terrifying. Is that sure? I think both scenes would have worked on their own, but intersplicing the two adds power to both scenes, and the interweaving between the two sides, the two stories, the yin and the yang, like you said. And yeah, I think that's maybe the most powerful scene of this movie. I think it's just incredible.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, another scene I do love with as far as like the editing goes is when we first go up to the student union rally is where you know, they're giving this big speech. You know, this is a great speech going on here. And then we just cut to people's faces, you know, just light behind them, and you just see people's faces come up, and they're just attentive and listening to everything that is going on in the speech, grasping onto every single word.
Yeah, as a videographer and a filmmaker, I was like, yes, like, and it just brings not only like the speech more to life, but it shows. To me, it showed the beauty of being Black, you know, within the scene, and like you said, how attentive they were in that as well. So,
yeah, I think it's just incredible editing and filmmaking and cinematography in that scene. I think it's just, again, that is Spike Lee to a T. I think right there. From him is that what he's trying to do and say in his movies is that scene right there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Again, but then that introduces a character that I do want to talk about. This is it Patrice is her name, correct? Yeah, the girlfriend. I think so.
Yes.
I want to talk about, because that's a character that is.
I keep wanting to call her Liz.
I had to look that up after. I did not recognize that this is the same girl from Spider-Man: Homecoming, because.
Why do you think I keep wanting to call her Liz?
Because she feels like she is 10 years older in this movie.
Wait,
right? This came out a year afterwards from Homecoming.
Mm-hmm. She's the girlfriend in Spider-Man: Homecoming, which I did not realize until after I watched the movie.
Well, I was sort of put two and two together after I'm about 3/4 of the way through Malcolm and Marie, and Washington is just working his way through like the Spider-Man, you know, female actresses.
I don't know. Him and Tom Holland should do a rom-com together. I would watch. But I think she is really great in this movie. I think she is very incredible. She's a perfect counterbalance to John David Washington, and it feels like her character in this feels like the point of view character in an early Spike Lee movie. Like that's how the thing she is saying in this, like, you can't fight from inside the system. Cops are pigs. You can't trust any cops. And he's coming in like, why can't we be a part of the system and still fight for what we believe in? Because that's the character that I feel like this is Spike Lee progressing and what his ideologies are.
Yeah. It was kind of like these two conflicting. I mean, obviously there was that attraction there between their characters, but there was this conflicting thing of, oh, she doesn't know that I'm a police officer, and her views on this, you know, like, you know, break the system, not like fight it within, you know, kind of thing. And I think part of that actually played out too, towards the end, where you know, the car blows up or whatever, and then he ends up getting arrested, and so I thought that was unique. But her character was, I don't know, I thought it was like the perfect dynamic duo. So.
Mm-hmm. Well, I once I realized that this was the girl from Spider-Man and whatnot, because I mean, for the most part, in Spider-Man, it's kind of sort of a throwaway character. You're not really looking for that, whatever. In this one, I think she brought her A game.
Yeah, absolutely.
And to be able to have the chemistry with Washington, to be able to, be at balance with him, to be able to have at that same level and whatnot. I think, because when I first saw her, I'm like, I know I recognize her, but the hair definitely made me go. I had to go look it up. I'm like, to realize this is the same person, because she definitely is on a whole different level. You do bring up the part about towards the end when the car blows up and, Washington is on the verge of being arrested, even though he's trying to stop the person that he's trying to arrest and whatnot, is the fact that driver gets out of his car, literally throws the badge at the guy and says, "Knock it off, you stupid ass."
Yeah.
And, it takes the other white cop to basically get the other white cop to go, "Oh, he is a police officer."
Yeah.
I'm an undercover cop, you idiot.
Yeah. Yeah, and that part, I'm not gonna lie, like
it makes you want to be angry.
And that was an emotional, that, like, even just thinking about it now, that was an emotional that was emotional for me. And I was pissed. I was angry because man, like I don't know if we're gonna do it, but I really want to talk about the ending of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know if you guys want to talk about it, because we're going to ruin the movie for everybody.
Well, that's we're telling people we're going full spoilers in this.
Yeah,
we have to talk.
It's pause and come back, or what? Hey, you had 3 years to watch this movie,
right? Yeah, but it shows that there's still that, like, man, they won, yeah, hoorah, like, and then the car blows up, wrong people, whatever, and like, oh, small victory, and then all of a sudden cops come in, dude, because they didn't know he was undercover police officer, and even when he's trying to reach for his badge and stuff like that, it was just like the emotion in me, like, it grabbed that emotion, and sad, anger, all these frustrations,
or the fact that he's even telling them, "Hey, I'll leave my hands up. You grab for my badge. I'm more than happy for you to check it out and whatnot." And once it gets a billy club to the gut.
Yeah, it's crazy. It was crazy. So.
Yeah, and again, I think this is a Spike Lee that's coming out of, like, Do the Right Thing. That has a very different situation with the police and police brutality in that movie. Is that, again, he's still not shying away from showing that in his movies. Again, this doesn't end like that, and that's kind of where I want to go into this, because, like we said, Adam Driver does show up and says, like, "We're undercover, you idiots! Like, let him go and stuff. Arrest the person that you actually need to arrest."
Yep.
I think that's a character I do want to talk about in this movie too, is that Adam Driver's character is that, he's the one infiltrating the Ku Klux Klan. He's also of Jewish faith, which is a big no-no for the Ku Klux Klan. They don't like that either. They're not good guys. Did you guys know that the Ku Klux Klan is not good people?
If I remember correctly, one of the things that's stated, the reason why he didn't feel he had quote unquote skin in the game, is because he's of Jewish heritage, but he wasn't raised Jewish.
Exactly.
He didn't go to the bar mitzvahs and stuff like that, so he didn't feel that he didn't have a stake in it. And I think it took a little bit of him getting exposed to basically the stuff that it took him actually being the stalwart of the face of the Klan for him to understand why he needed to have skin in the game. That even though he wasn't raised that way, that once he realized what these people were about, especially with the part about, like, the whole polygraph test and all that stuff, whatever, when he really had it thrown into his face, that's when he really changes his tune and says, "Okay, now I get it. Now I understand why, even though I'm not African American, this is why I also have skin in the game as well.
And there was the point in the movie where he even had that slip up, where it was after they went to Ron Stallworth's house or whatever, the real Ron Stallworth, and he had that slip up where they're just like, talking about the. Sorry, I have to IMDb it. Patrice, right? They're talking about Patrice, and he's like, "No, don't say that." And the room just got still, right? And then he's like, crap, what did I? And then he, bounced back, because I think that's when he was starting to feel like, okay.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. You gotta admit, though, that's a pretty good, I mean, granted, it's great writing from Spike Lee or whatever, but I mean, for somebody who's online for something like that, that's a pretty good recovery.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
I won't say what he says, but
I won't either.
That was a great recovery.
Yeah.
Because that was the one where you're absolutely right. In terms of the character and everybody that's in there and whatnot, it just completely lets the air out of the room. Yep. Then all of a sudden, as soon as he figures out how to recover from it, then everybody's like, "Oh yeah, you're okay."
Yeah.
But I mean, there's a couple instances of that where he almost butchers it, like when he's talking about like how he wasn't going to be able to be part of he wasn't going to be able to be the chair or whatever the case is because his dad was sick.
Yeah.
And then he says he's in Dallas, but he's like, "No, I thought he was in Arizona." Oh, that's right. The layover is in Dallas. Like,
yep.
He has a few of those slip ups throughout this movie, and that I think, like, this movie is really funny, like we said, but it's also very tense. Like, this feels like a thriller movie every time Adam Driver is with the members of the Klan. Like, it just feels like I'm on the edge the entire time he's with them.
You're afraid that he's going to get outed and something's going to happen to him.
And then every other character that we've fallen in love with and are following in this movie too. And again, I think a big misstep for Adam Driver's character in this is that he's about to take that polygraph test, the lie detector test. John David Washington throws that rock through the window, which alarms everybody in the house. They go running after him. Driver grabs the gun out of the guy's hands and starts shooting, and completely misses. Yet when they go to the gun range, he hits the targets for $50. I'm like, you're trying to show off there, but yet you're giving away that you probably could have shot John David Washington if you wanted to. And again, I think I love those little breadcrumbs that we get throughout this movie of everybody else figuring out what we as the audience already know too.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I go back to, like, and eventually he does get outed, when they're, he gets brought in, and then there's a prisoner there that's like, yo, that's a police officer.
That's Flip.
That's Flip, And so, and even how he handled that was like just the character that he played was just so good.
The other Leguizamo that we haven't talked about, what is his name? John Leguizamo's brother, who plays that character.
Is that who it is? Is that his brother?
Oh, not John Leguizamo. John Turturro. Wrong.
Yeah.
Wrong John.
Okay. I was like, because number one,
Nicholas Turturro.
If this guy was Spanish, I'm pretty sure he wouldn't be there.
Sorry, wrong John. John Turturro. Not John Leguizamo.
Nicholas Turturro.
Yes.
Yeah.
Nicholas Turturro. So I had to, because like I was watching it with a friend of mine who's a photographer and videographer, and I was like, I'm pretty sure he's Mexican. But he's not. I just found out. I IMDb'd it, and he's
Italian.
He's Italian American.
And
I was like,
Grandy, if you look at him and look at John Turturro, I wouldn't picture those two related.
I also think he plays a lot of Hispanic characters in movies because he's in a lot of Adam Sandler movies, and he plays a lot of Hispanic characters in those. Another person,
at least he plays a better Spanish than, like, say, Willem Dafoe in as the Spaniard in Once Upon a Time in Mexico.
Another famous brother is in this movie. Well, another person whose brother is famous.
Oh, and who's that?
Steve Buscemi's brother. Michael Buscemi is the other detective with Adam Driver and John David Washington.
I had to look him up because like when he literally first shows up, I was like, I didn't know Steve Buscemi was in this movie.
Same here.
Until I IMDb'd it or whatever, I thought it was. I was all like, wait, what? I was like, I had no clue until you said that. I was like, no, it's him.
When he first shows up, he's kind of dark and little and kind of silhouetted, and I'm like, oh, cool, Steve Buscemi's in this, and get a closer look. I'm like, oh no, he looks like him. Sure enough, it's his brother.
The whole time, I thought it was Steve. Literally, I was like, I thought it was Steve. Even when he talked, I thought it was Steve. So that's so funny.
We got to talk about.
Are you profiling this Buscemi's their body?
I guess I am, man.
They got that type of face. We'll say that.
Yeah.
We got to talk about the members of the Klan in this movie. The actors that are portraying them, because I think they are doing an incredible job, and this can't be an easy thing to do for an actor either. Is say all these mean and hurtful, horrible things. I mean, especially Felix, who is probably who is the worst of the members of the Klan here. He is the erratic one, the wild card. I do love the relationship between him and his wife, in that it's very entertaining as far as a movie goes, and it's also like they are horrible people.
Oh yeah.
Well, especially when she shows up for the very first time, you think that she's a little homemaker, Betty Crocker thing, and then she starts talking, and you realize that wow, she is just as bad as they are, if not worse.
Yeah,
she just gets sidelined because she's the woman.
Yeah. And then what happens with her character by the end of this movie too is like she is all aboard on whatever they want her to do. She just feels like I got to be a part. I got to be with the boys now and part of this. And I think the actress is incredible in this movie. I think she's having fun with playing a horrible character, in that she's like, the look of her. She seems like a sweetheart in real life too, and I think that's part of the casting of this movie too, is that she, like you said, Brian, she walks in and she's like, oh, she's going to be the nice housewife who bakes them all cookies for their KKK meeting. But no, she is just as bad or worse than them.
Yeah. I will say that when we get to the part where they go to Plan B, and that all changed and whatnot, I legit thought she was going to be the sacrificial lamb. I legit thought that she was not going to make it to the end of the movie.
Yeah,
that sort of thing, that it was going to be her way to being the martyr for their cause kind of thing. That, like, that's what I thought Plan B was going to be. I did.
So when it comes to one of the characters, Walter, I think his name is Walter Breachway. So he's the dude with the stash, the leader of that group or whatever. So that actor, I was so surprised, because that actor, his name is Ryan Edgold or something like that. And I've only known him as a soft-hearted doctor from New Amsterdam. I don't know if you guys ever watched New Amsterdam.
Well,
so I saw him in this movie, and I was like, what? Like, how? But you're this sweet little doctor over here playing this hardcore character.
Since we are talking about the rest of the Klan members, Paul Walter Hauser is incredible in this movie too, playing the fat drunk member of the group that is, I think drunk the entire time we see him in this movie. I'm pretty sure he has some great lines to the group, and also he's kind of, again, one of the erratic members of the Klan, and one that I think the character that kind of helps bring in Ron, Adam Driver's Ron, into the group, is they sort of he figures out his in. Adam Driver figures out his in is to get buddies with the drunk guy and make him laugh, because then you're going to befriend this guy, and everybody else, if you're friends with one of them, they're all going to trust you.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt like his character was like one of those characters that like in my personal opinion, I think his character was like, I just want to belong. So I'm just gonna hang out with these guys, become part of these guys, and hate what they hate. I could be wrong, but that's how I felt like his character was.
I do think that's how he came off.
Yeah.
In that he was going for where he felt he could be accepted, and he just kind of molded himself to that environment.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
I will say, because again, he's one of those ones where it was the familiar face that like I had to figure out why I know him, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then to realize that you go from doing something like this to being the lead of a Clint Eastwood movie.
Paul Walter Hauser, yeah.
Yeah. Like I immediately was like, I know this face. Why do I know this face? I'm like, that's Richard Kelly. Like how do you go from drunk this to that? I mean,
yeah.
I think he is an incredible actor in pretty much everything that he does, and he's great in this movie too. And I do lean on what you guys are saying too. I do feel like, again, and this could be the environment his character was raised in too.
Richard Jewell. I want to correct myself. Richard Jewell. I apologize.
Yeah.
And again, I think this is also a thing with what Spike is trying to tell in this movie is that on both sides there's good. I don't know if he's saying there's good people on both sides, but he's saying there's good in people on any side. There's always good in people, and I think that's mostly in the character of Patrice and Ron's character. Their interactions is him trying to say, on the police side, there's good cops out there. Not everybody's out to get everyone, and like that feels like a progression of Spike in his filmmaking and his ideals.
Yeah, and not all. I mean, and obviously, they got pulled over, after that that incident, after the student union gathering, and they got pulled over. And towards the end of the movie, it was kind of like, I tell you what, it was a whole bunch of hurrahs. Like I was sitting there and I was like, let's go. Bomb blew up, everybody's safe. People are that's a victory. They go from arresting that police officer, and I was like, that's a victory. And they're like, oh yeah, we got to keep this thing on the DL. And I was like, oh man, that sucks. And then they go to the phone call, and I was just all like, let's go. And then they go to the ending, and I was like, that was the part that hit the hardest for me.
So let's jump into that then, because like you said, it is. So Spike sets this up like a Hollywood movie ending here, is that we're getting a series of victories. Everything he has set up before is paying off. Like you said, the racist cop, he gets arrested for pulling over these group for no reason. He gets arrested.
Or basically saying that he would shoot somebody because he could.
Yeah. And so he gets his comeuppance.
Yeah.
Then we jump to basically they're saying, hey, we won. We basically have, for the most part, stopped the Ku Klux Klan here in this area, at least. That's a win. We at least succeeded in stopping a bombing is what they're celebrating. Then, like you said, the phone call with David Duke, that's a celebration too, which is a great laugh out loud. Like that's a Hollywood ending right there, is that phone call right there, and everybody else laughing on the other end. But like you said, we jump to the ending with John David Washington and Ron and Patrice in the apartment, where they're kind of still talking about how they can try to be together, hopefully. And that's kind of just stopped because they get is it a knock at the door?
Yeah, knock at the door. Yeah.
And we get this incredible dolly shot of both of them.
Oh my goodness. I was like
Spike Lee shot of them both
so
getting
good.
Pulled. Feels like it's out of a Shaft movie, those two together, getting pulled out into the hallway, looking at the window, and outside you just see this burning cross. And that's where the movie ends.
Yeah, I was pissed.
But not the entire that's where the story ends. Maybe that's but that's not where the movie ends. Because
and to that I would say, like, he set it up so perfectly, because like, and I'm not trying to make this like like political or anything, but it is a political movie. Is that he sets it up so perfectly because like we have gotten like in Black history, we have gotten so many wins, right? And that movie expresses that. But then reality hits, and you think, oh yeah, we're killing it in this victory, and then all of a sudden you hear a story of someone getting shot by police officers, and then you're like, we are back to step one again, and that's how I took it, and that hit me so hard because I was like, man, I was riding that high with those victories, and then once that door knocks, I'm just all like, oh, come on. And then that hallway shot, which is that dolly shot was so beautiful, so good. And then it's like the cross burning, and then the shot within, like, as a videographer and filmmaker, the shot of the eye and seeing the burning cross in the eye, I was like, that's so good, so good. But I digress a little bit. But it's just the whole premise of like getting all these victories and then coming back to, oh snap, we might have to go back to square one. So.
And I think that's what Spike is saying here is that's there's many victories throughout this, but the fight isn't over just because you've won one battle.
Yeah,
the war continues out there, and I think that's what he is definitely trying to say with this movie here is that, again, he sets it in the 70s, but this could have just as well have taken place in 2018, which is terrifying. And I think there's a great interaction in this movie where Ron is talking to one of his superior officers, and they're talking about who David Duke is and his backstory and how he might run for political office. And John David Washington says, well, someone like David Duke would never get elected president or in a political office like that. Cuts to whatever, we're doing it. We're cut to 2018. Donald Trump is in the White House. That's what Spike Lee is trying to say in this movie.
Yeah.
And I think it is super powerful what he is doing in this movie because you jump from a movie about the Ku Klux Klan to the footage of 2017 with
2017.
Those the is in Virginia, those
Charlotte, North Carolina.
Yeah.
North Carolina or Virginia, whatever, East Coast, and showing the real footage, which is terrifying.
Yeah.
Again, that is, I love how Spike Lee does that in this movie, and it just bookends what he is trying to say in this.
Yeah, absolutely. And it goes back to like, man, this is real stuff. Like, this is real history. This is real stuff that people are going through. And for him to,
it's not even history at this point. It's still present day.
It's still present day. Yeah. And for him to like say, okay, hey, I'm going to take that and I'm put a creative twist on it, put a little, a dash of humor in it.
Mm-hmm.
And it makes it a little bit lighthearted, but then that ending just hits so hard,
right?
Like beyond hard.
I mean, probably, and the biggest thing I think that, for the sake of giving those real life events that he had at the very end of it, is the fact that the very last thing that you see is the casualty out of all of it. Is all you get these people that are trying to separate race and everything like that. The casualty that he shows on screen is a white woman. The fact that whoever drove that car and whatnot was out to just cause havoc and whatnot, and in the end of it, what did it accomplish?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I go back to that moment with Trump that saying that there was good people on both sides. It's like,
no, how
can you say that a group that is and I'll be honest, I don't agree with I don't agree with everything that happens in the world. I'm just going to leave it at that. Mm-hmm. But you have an organization that is trying to stand up for love and equality, and then you have another organization that stands for hate. How are there good people on both sides?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So, That's all I'm gonna say about that. I'm sorry. I don't want to make
No,
it super political.
No, and it's
If
hard
we didn't
not.
want to get political, we wouldn't be talking Spike Lee movies.
Yeah.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah. But I think what Spike does so well with his movies is that every movie we talked about of his so far is political. Do the Right Thing, Malcolm X, and BlacKkKlansman. But with that, he also makes it super digestible.
Yes.
All three of those movies are easy to digest. You know, Do the Right Thing is also very funny. I would say it's probably a comedy straightforward right away. Is if you put it in a category, it's comedy, with a huge political message in it. BlacKkKlansman is a comedy crime movie.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
With a political message to it. Yeah. Malcolm X is a biopic drama with a political message to it again. And
well, you have a name like Malcolm X, it's going to be political.
Yeah. But what I think I've been talking about Spike's progression with his ideals is that back in 89, 92 with Do the Right Thing and Malcolm X, he said in many interviews, like, he leaned, as far as if you look at the split ideologies of Martin Luther King and Malcolm X, he leaned more towards Malcolm X. But I think now in 2018, now to 2021, I think he's looking at both sides of that now. He's right in the middle of that. He hears both sides this time. And I think that's what he's showing in this movie. And I think the characters that really show that are Ron and Patrice, showing those dualities and how they can try to coexist together and how they are fighting for the same message. It's the same cause. And what I think he's really doing in this one too is also telling white people, like, this is your fight too. Do you guys feel like that's a big message in this movie too? I think that's why.
Yeah. I think of, like, just the thought of, like, I mean, you're in the 70s. You have a first black man as a police officer working with a white man who has Jewish descent, but is not, like, Jewish. And it takes a team. I mean, and that comes back down to, I talk about this all the time. It comes back to this, is the word, which a lot of people disagree with, and it's the word privilege, right? Like, and I equate it to this, is like, in this movie, it shows that scene with the police officers where they're trying to arrest Ron, and the dude's like, throws a badge at him and says, "We're undercover." More people need to use their privilege that they have. And we live in Sioux Falls, right? And this is what I tell people all the time. We live in Sioux Falls, and if I walk on the south side of 57th Street, where all the big houses are, the cops are going to get called. I mean, black sweatshirt, black pants. I only wear black, right? Now, if all three of us were going to walk in the hood, who do you think is going to get welcome?
Mm-hmm.
Me. You know what I mean?
I was going to say, not me or Brian, probably.
Yeah. But what I say to that is, I want to be able to go to a flipping grocery store and not have a woman grab her purse. I want to be able to go to, like, walk in a car parking lot without people double checking to make sure that their car is locked, or see me. This happened like 3 weeks ago. Some lady, nice Mercedes, walking out of my office, sees me, and she's getting out of her car, gives me a dirty look, hops back in her car, and I made it very obvious. She's parked here. I'm walking this way. I was walking this way, and I made it very obvious. I started, like, you know what? I'm going to make her comfortable. And so it's like, this stuff is real. And I think Spike Lee, like, I think he hit on that privilege part in it, and it takes a team to speak up on this. So, sorry, I kind of rambled there.
No, that's great. Yeah, and that's I think, like, the scene that we talked about last week with Malcolm X is he's walking down this college campus, and this white girl comes up and says, "I really, really love what you're talking about. How can I help the cause?" And in that movie, he says, "Nothing. There's nothing you can do to help me with that." But by the end of it, he has a different ideology, and I think that's where Spike is at his point in his career now, and what the messages he is trying to deliver here.
Yeah.
And it's one of those voices, like, I want to hear what he has to say, because it's always going to be straightforward, to the point, Well, also, I'm going to be entertained for the 2 hours of, of the movie. Like we said here, this does have the Hollywood ending too. Like the movie could have ended with, like we said, the phone call, but Spike Lee adds that extra 5 minutes to it, and I think that's the kind of the knockout punch of this movie is that's the final nail. Like that's it. That's like I said, he's flexing in this movie. Flexing all his filmmaking power, and I think BlacKkKlansman is an incredible movie.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I haven't watched a lot of Spike Lee movies, and this makes me want to watch more, even just to see like Spike Lee, where he came from to where he's now. And so I'm excited to watch some more. That's for sure.
I would have to agree with you because, like I said earlier, Spike is being a completely blind spot for me, and that's not because he's the filmmaker that he is and whatnot. It's just that's how it happened and whatnot. But like I said, I mean, we've talked about Do the Right Thing and Malcolm X and now this and whatnot. Yeah. And I mean, even just in those 3 films, like you can see that progression of him as a filmmaker.
Yeah.
And that's what makes me want to be like, I want to at some point get back to those films as well. I want to see more of that progression because you do have some of those filmmakers where it's like it just looks like it's just the next churn out film and whatnot. Whereas like these here, you see that we're getting better films and higher quality films because he's becoming he is that film student. He never lost the film student thought process, from going to NYU to what he is today.
Yeah. And I'm going to say this. I love both of these directors, right? But there's definitely a difference between a Michael Bay movie, which every Michael Bay movie is like, poof, 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 and a Spike Lee movie. I feel like there's more, like with Spike Lee, in my personal opinion, I feel like there's more of that. You see that progression of his filmmaking growing and changing, where Michael Bay is like, let's put an explosion over here, another one over here. I don't know. I could be wrong though too. So
no, I think you're right. For the sake of like, I mean,
I think he's the opposite of Spike Lee. He's digressed as a filmmaker. His best stuff is The Rock and Bad Boys.
Yeah.
Whereas Spike is like, my great stuff is there and in the middle of my career and now in my career.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think he is, like you said, that filmmaker, the film student is still ever present inside of him.
Yeah. I forgot Michael Bay directed Bad Boys. That's funny.
I will bring something up just because we talk about like Spike's history and whatnot. Just ironically enough, and I wish this would have been something I had, that this article came out. This article came out literally like a couple days after we recorded the Malcolm X episode. But one of the things that Casey and I talked about was if Spike didn't do Malcolm X, who could have done Malcolm X? And who was one of the people we talked about, Casey?
We talked about was it Scorsese and the other one, but blanking on his name. Oliver Stone, yes.
So the reason why I bring it up here, and I find it very fascinating, is the article that I read was actually an interview on an interview. It was Spike Lee and Stone and Oliver Stone, because they were actually talking about like what they're working on right now, especially with like the Five Bloods and whatnot. Oliver Stone was presented with doing Malcolm X, and he turned it down because he couldn't. He's like, I couldn't figure it out. He goes, and you're like the right person at the right time to make that movie. Because one of the things they brought up is the JFK footage from Malcolm X is from Oliver Stone's JFK, because they were being made at the same time. But I love the fact that, we talked about, like, if anybody could have made it, that's who we thought of. And Oliver Stone himself is like, yeah, I couldn't do it.
That's crazy.
So I kind of want to run into our last, question here. I mean, from this conversation, I think everybody listening can tell. I recommend for BlacKkKlansman for all of us. But the question I always like to leave off on, and Brian, you said you have an answer like off the bat for this question.
I do.
We like to do the double features. What makes a great double feature with BlacKkKlansman? What would you pair with this movie before or after watching it? So, Brian, you have one, so I'll throw it off to you first.
I did, and I think now is like the perfect time to be doing it and whatnot. And I wish this would be movies, knowing that I know that you guys have not seen it, and I like this idea. Is the fact of actually watching Judas and the Black Messiah that just came out here, because as I was watching that, because I watched it yesterday, and seeing like the violence and the mayhem that was everything that was like on the Klansman side of things and whatnot, and you kind of like between BlacKkKlansman and like this, you kind of get two different perspectives of like how the Black Panthers and how like the Black civil rights and all that stuff was going on and whatnot. That you get to see a little bit of the anarchy that was on one side of that, as well as like the tranquility side of what we were trying to get out of BlacKkKlansman. I think those two together, I think, well, that, and you're talking about stellar performances again from Daniel Kaluuya and Lakeith Stanfield as well. So I think these two, I think, would work just very well together, especially when you're talking about multiple perspectives of the same time period of what was going on at that time.
I can't do like a double feature, but I would say this. Just hear me out, okay? Hear me out.
Transformers the movie.
Michael Bay. No, hear me out. You start with another classic, right? Remember the Titans, okay? A lighthearted introduction to a little bit of racism, okay? Then you go to the Black Messiah, right? And then you end it off with the BlacKkKlansman. No.
He's over here going, screw double feature. Here's my triple feature.
That would be me. I mean, you start off light, and then you just go straight like deep into it, and then you're like, okay, you know what? I'm gonna end it with a little bit of comedy, but still on a serious note. So that's my thoughts right away. It's funny because right
as you say that, I think you're right. I think I probably would put Judas and the Black Messiah first.
Yeah,
that way you can end on a high-ish kind of note.
Yeah, like even after this movie, like my friend and I, we ended up watching Coming to America because we're like, that was heavy. So we're like, all right, let's watch Coming to America, I guess. So yeah, so that's my thoughts on that.
I like it. Start it with Denzel and with John David.
Yeah.
Yep.
The Washington triple feature.
Mine,
I would pair this with a movie that they brought up in this. I would pair it with like Shaft, the 70s Shaft, because stylistically, I feel this has a lot going on with that. And like we said, this does have heavy elements in it. And it's also fun to go back to the 70s and what movies were coming out then. And I'm like, it'd be fun to watch Shaft right after, Ron Stallworth also is a fan of Shaft, like mimicking some of his actions after those 70s blaxploitation actors and trying to do kung fu himself too. I think that would just be a fun double feature to pair it.
I want to know why we haven't got Spike Lee's The Shaft yet.
Have you seen the 2019 Shaft or the 2020 Shaft? With Samuel L. Jackson?
The reboot to his own reboot or whatever it was, or sequel or whatever that thing was going. I still don't even know how that was even supposed to play out.
I think I've only ever seen the original. I haven't seen the Samuel L. Jackson like 2000s and then the newest one. I think they're sons.
Yeah.
So I think
all I know is
Samuel L. Jackson, then the new guy.
All I know is that you have to be very specific. Like, there's only certain people, I think, that if you were going to quote unquote redo Shaft nowadays, not many people, I think, could play that role.
Yeah.
The guy right behind you. John David Washington.
He definitely would be one of those ones that I think could definitely hold the mantle.
Yeah.
Or Michael Jai White.
I could not take him seriously after Black Dynamite.
You don't have to take him seriously. It's Shaft.
It's comedy. Come on now.
Yeah. All right, so let's wrap this thing up again. And go check out BlacKkKlansman. I recommend from all three of us here, and try one of these double or triple features out. Let us know if you try those out. See if how they work out. So, like we said, next week we are going to continue Spike Lee month. We're going to be covering Da 5 Bloods, his latest film. Next week, which just came out in 2020, getting a lot of award buzz. We'll be talking about that next week. But if you'd like to stay up to date on everything that we are doing, you can subscribe to the podcast on Apple, Spotify, Stitcher, Google, Amazon, and on YouTube. You can all subscribe there. If you do, we'd love to hear comments from you guys. If you can leave a comment or a review, we'd love to hear your thoughts on everything that we got going on. And if you do want some bonus content, check out our Patreon, patreon.com/backlot605. We will have a bonus Spike Lee episode up on the Patreon. So we have a voting out there right now. From what it looks like, I think He Got Game is leaning towards what we will be doing from what it sounds like. So we're going to have some more Denzel this month. There's nothing wrong with more Denzel.
There's nothing wrong with having Denzel.
Nothing wrong with it.
Yeah.
And I would just like to point out, I'm getting really good at pointing where I need to point when I'm like trying to get to the header here.
Yeah, I saw that. I was like, okay.
Yeah, I'm getting better at this.
There it is. That's talent right there. I love that.
Should have saw me the first day.
It's like, you're like the scarecrow both ways.
Yeah.
Don't forget to check us out on social media at Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all at Backlot605.
Do it.
Also, the South Dakota Film Community Group on Facebook. Join the conversation. We like to hear from everybody.
That's right.
It is. That is it, guys. That's what we got for the show. I'm going to throw it off to Bobby one more time. Where can they follow you and every project you're working on? Hazard, the Black Project. Where can they follow all that online?
Yeah, absolutely. You can follow me on Facebook, Bobby Lloyd Peacock, on Instagram, DJ Peacock, on TikTok, DJ Peacock68. Go check out the Hazard Film Project on Instagram and Facebook. For more stuff. And I'm also on YouTube. Just type in Bobby Peacock and you should find me on YouTube. So, yeah.
Awesome. Well, that is it. Bobby, thank you so much for coming on. This was a blast. Like we said, I'm so glad we got to have you on to talk about just movies this time. This is so much fun. And from what I remember, I think you brought Michael Bay up during that interview as well. So we might have to cover a Michael Bay movie with you.
Yes, that and the horror movie experience, where you guys bring me to a horror movie. We'll talk about it, and then we can talk about Michael Bay too.
Hey, I'm down. Let's do it.
Let's make it happen.
I had to just go find you. I'm all for that. We're gonna have to find just a great horror movie, and I'll buy the ticket in case you can buy the popcorn.
Oh my goodness. Y'all don't even want to know. Y'all don't even want to know. You know what? We'll bring the other Bobby.
That's one of the experiences that I do want in my life, Bobby. I'm saying.
Oh no. Oh man. Well, thank you guys once again for having me on. Really appreciate it. Really appreciate what you guys are doing to bring the filmmaking community together and talk about movies that are so fun and reminisce about stuff too. So I really appreciate what you guys are doing. So
thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you. Anytime you want to come back, we'll talk about movies. Doesn't have to be Michael Bay movies either. Any movie you want to talk about, we'll talk about it.
Michael Bay and horror movie. So
right. I'm over here going, what's next month? Hey, Bobby, do you want in?
Let's go.
We're gonna end up having. We're just have to have multiple guests, just because everybody's gonna want to come back all the time.
Right? Yeah. Awesome.
All right. Yeah. Thank you again so much, Bobby. This was a blast, and for everybody listening, thank you all for listening. For Brian Mensing, I'm Casey Calderman, and you know what, you guys, you can check us out next time on the Backlot of South Dakota.